besides both Bill Clinton and Barack Obama being sort of very personable people, is, both of them had sort of religion as a cultural landmark that, you expect someone in the South, and Bill Clinton traded very heavily on being Southern, and so you expect that someone who's Southern is going to be Christian and that's going to be important to them culturally. And of course, with Barack Obama, you expect someone growing up as an African American in this country to, sort of embrace that, the race religion angle there. So the sorts of work that Hillary Clinton had to do was very different. In some ways she had to prove that she was not so establishment. That was the big knock on her, was, that she's such an establishment person. And so perhaps, among other reasons, that's one of the reasons that she felt that she had to sort of keep that hidden. I think having read a lot of stuff that she's written, it's really more that she's just so deeply unwilling to share any part of sort of her person to the world that her personality remains sort of locked up and hidden when she's on a campaign, to her detriment. I think showing more of that would have helped her tremendously, but I think that includes her religion, that she didn't want to be sort of using her religion for political purposes, and it may have actually helped her if she had.
I think that's true. I mean, I think I don't know if it would have helped her, but I think you're absolutely right about why it is that she would have been hesitant to do that. And who knows? Yeah, who knows if it would have helped or not. One of the remarkable things about Trump's candidacy and the high level of support that he has received from, white Christians in the United States, I think in some ways it can be encapsulated with a particular statistic. This is from Robert Jones. Robert Jones is The End of White Christian America. Robert Jones is the CEO of a group called the Public Religions Research Institute, and they do lots of, kind of data gathering on religion in the United States. And in that book, he talks about a poll that the PRRI had administered in the 1990s that had indicated, it basically had asked the question of how important it is to white evangelical Christians that a political candidate also be a good person, right? So how important is the kind of moral valence of a political candidate? And in the 1990s, 70% of white evangelical Christians said that to be a good political candidate, you also had to be a moral person. So it was a 70-30 divide. They asked the same question again in 2016, and the divide had directly flipped, so that 70% of white evangelical Christians will now say that you do not have to be a moral person to be a good political candidate, and 30% will still kind of hold the line on that. So I think that, the question of whether Clinton could have kind of peeled people out of the realm of conservative Christianity or anyway of white evangelical Christianity and conservative Catholicism, I think is a really interesting question. I think that in some sense, no matter how religious she would have been able to show herself to be, there wouldn't have been much hope there, because it seems to be the case that white Christians were voting for Trump on according to a different set of criteria. It wasn't really about how religious or how moral he was, which anybody would know if you look at, again, as you said a few minutes ago, if you look at how it is that he appears to engage with religion.
Mm-hmm. It may be that some of this is very particular to that race and won't apply as much going forward. I mean, there's something very particular about the way that people react to everything that Hillary Clinton does and says, and it may be that she never could have come off as authentically religious, even though she is and has been for a long time. And so maybe that's something that other candidates won't have to grapple with quite as much. But I think it is going to be an ongoing discussion and an ongoing important thing for Democratic candidates and the Democratic Party to deal with and to think about.
I think that's true. Yes.
Well, is there anything else you want to make sure that we think about when we're thinking about religion and politics?
I think that this episode really shows that you are thinking about something that's really important, which is the fact that there's a whole world out there of particularly evangelical Christianity that's not the Christian right. And I've spoken with evangelical Christians who who identify themselves as progressive evangelicals, and that's a source of ongoing frustration within those circles that it's the conservative evangelicals that get all of the exposure. So I think it's fantastic to be working to nuance that and really kind of unpack what it means to be, a member of the Christian left, both within Catholicism and within Protestantism.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. I think this has added an important sort of historical way of us to think about this and look at this. So I'm very glad that you were able to join us.
Thank you for having me.
Our theme music is called Sweeter Vermouth and was composed by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. It is licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Our logo was created by Matthew Weflin, expressly for Two Broads Talking Politics, and is copyright 2017. You can contact us at twobroadstalkingpolitics@gmail.com or at twobroadstalk on Twitter. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and TuneIn. Please let us know if you have any trouble finding us.